We are now at the end of the first month of this nightmare in Israel. And I want to begin the show. We'll get to the poll numbers, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, the Siena College poll, all of that. But I actually think this is important enough. I want to say it at the beginning of the show. Particularly, I want to speak to my Jewish friends and Jewish audience listeners. I felt very guilty the number of people who are Jewish who have sent me things in the mail. I have gotten bottles of bourbon and boxes of cigars and boxes of treats. One couple does goodie baskets, and they sent me one loaded up with a lot of different treats. And I feel guilty because they're sending me stuff to tell me thank you for having their back. And I think if everyone was with them, they wouldn't feel the need to single me out. And yet they do, because I think what they see in the media, so much of the world around them, makes them feel like they are alone in a massive insanity. The sane among the insane. So if I can, just here at the beginning, let me talk to my Jewish friends who have spent a month in a nightmare. What went from being a supposed attack on Israel is very clearly the sudden surge of anti-Semitism, not from the right, but from the left and around the world. You have people at the White House over the weekend were really legitimately chanting death to the Jews. They were literally calling Israel a genocidal nation that needs to be exterminated. They were calling for the extermination of Israel. They were putting bloodied handprints on the White House wall, a fiery but mostly peaceful protest that ABC News calls a passionate protest. The vandalism was passionate. If that was passionate, so was January 6th. So my Jewish listeners and friends, first, I want you to know I don't support Israel because of some misinterpreted evangelical prophecy in the Bible. I actually do not know a Christian. I'm sure there are some in mostly charismatic denominations and dispensationalists who have some belief about the final battle of the apocalypse at Armageddon, and it'll be Christians versus Jews, and we've got to reestablish Israel to fulfill all these prophecies to bring about the second coming of Christ, to kill everybody, including the Jews. I don't actually know anyone who believes that. And every time this comes up of why evangelicals support Israel, I'm told that's why. From people who aren't evangelicals, I'm told that's why as an evangelical Christian who's pretty open about my faith, I don't know anyone who believes that in the church. Seems a lot of people outside the church seem to believe a lot of people in the church believe that. I'll tell you what I believe as a Christian. I believe there's good and there's evil. And what happened to Israel was evil, and Israel is on the good side. So I support Israel because I support good over evil, and good must triumph over evil, and Hamas is evil. I support Israel because I'm an American. I'm an American who believes in America, the promise of America. America is a shining city on a hill. I'm not ashamed of America's history. I'm not ashamed of this country. And I believe this country has an obligation to support other democracies in the world where we can. And Israel is a democracy surrounded by dictatorships, many of which are ruthless, cruel, and legitimate ideological heirs of the Nazi Party. The Ba'athist Party of Syria, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, they all descend from the ideological successors of the Nazi Party. So Israel is literally a country surrounded by the successor parties of the Nazis. We should be on the side of Israel, not the Nazis. We should be on Israel's side as a democracy. We should be on Israel's side as the only legitimate democracy in the Middle East. I'm for Israel because I'm a human being. And after the Holocaust, humanity said never again. And there are a whole lot of people marching in the streets around the world today who have forgotten that, don't believe it was true, have decided they're Holocaust deniers. But I believe we have an obligation to say never again. And Hamas inflicted the worst death toll against Jews since the Holocaust. We should stand up against Hamas. And I support Israel because I believe in the truth. I believe in absolute truth. I don't believe in relative truths. I believe in absolute truth. And the absolute truth is there was a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas broke that ceasefire a month ago tomorrow on October 7th, 2023. And they not only broke that ceasefire, they did so in the most monstrous, savage, evil way possible. And so they should be sent to hell, every last one of them. Hamas should burn in hell. And so I support Israel's right to send Hamas to the gates of hell. Pro-Hamas supporters like to chant Free Palestine, river to sea. It's a call for the elimination of Israel. Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib of Michigan has been denounced by the Michigan Attorney General for saying it's an aspirational call. Yeah, it's an aspirational call for Jewish genocide. That's exactly what it is. I support Israel from river to sea, and I support a Jewish-led peace from river to sea. Now, there are lots of people who say, what about the Palestinians? What about the Palestinians? Shouldn't you support the Palestinians? Well, the Palestinians elected Hamas to be their leaders. They had a choice, and they chose Hamas. And now they've been imprisoned, not by Israel, but by Hamas. To the extent there's genocide being committed, it's by Hamas against the Jews and against their own people who they're using as human shields. Now, you listen to me very carefully. Those of you who are like, what about the poor Palestinians? The poor Palestinians elected a government called Hamas that now chooses to use those same Palestinian citizens as human shields. If you're outraged on behalf of the Palestinian people, you should be demanding Hamas lay down their arms and hand over the hostages, not support a ceasefire of Israel. To the extent any of you support a ceasefire, you're supporting the genocide of the Jewish people. You are supporting the rearmament of Hamas. If you really care about peace in the Middle East, you would be loudly demanding Hamas surrender, lay down its arms, and give up its hostages. And I would note how very few of you are when you say you care about the Palestinian people. You don't really care about the Palestinian people. You hate the Jews, but you can't say that. So you say, I care about the Palestinian people too. No, you don't care about the Palestinian people, or you would be demanding Hamas lay down its arms, surrender, and give up its hostages, because it's Hamas using these people as human shields. It's not Israel willfully exterminating the Palestinians. It's Hamas holding the innocent people in front of them so they get hit by the bullets instead of Hamas. You should be condemning Hamas, and you're not. And it's very telling, you moral cowards who scream about supporting the Palestinian people, that you never say release the hostages, surrender Hamas, lay down your arms. No, it's all about what Israel must do. Poor Israel. Israel must lay down its arms. Israel must have a ceasefire. Israel must stop. Israel should not stop until every last member of Hamas is dead in the street. Unfortunately for Israel, the American administration of Joe Biden is surrounded with a bunch of people who were complicit in causing the problem. The CIA director, William Burns, the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, the National Security Council advisor, all of these people were complicit in funding Iran, which funded Hamas. They all knew Iran would do this. They all said Iran funds terrorism around the world, and still they wanted to fund Iran. And so these very same people who are working for peace in the Middle East are the ones who funded the war that cost 1,400 Israeli citizens their lives. This administration, when the Palestinian protesters put their bloody handprints on the White House wall, in irony, they thought it was about Palestinian lives, but actually it was the Jewish lives that this administration cost. It was the Jewish lives in Israel, all 1,400 of them, that the Biden administration was complicit in killing, because the Biden administration that now seeks peace is the Biden administration that funded the war machine of Iran to fund Hamas. And they're not going to put that genie back in the bottle. Meanwhile, in the Biden administration, they are surrounded with pro-Iran, pro-Hamas protesters. The Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, has had to do a struggle session at the Department of State. What is a struggle session? Back in communist China, They would surround people with students, and the students would yell, invent, and insult the people in what was called a struggle session, opening people's eyes to the sins and grievances that they had caused and committed. And that's what Anthony Blinken has had to do at the State Department. He's had to allow the pro-Hamas sympathizing employees to come in, and instead of firing them, he let them lecture him on how we need to be on the side of the Palestinian people. What they really mean is be against Israel and for Hamas. They want a ceasefire. They want a ceasefire so Hamas can rearm. They're either willfully ignorant people or they're evil. There really isn't a middle of the road here. The White House staff itself has many aggrieved people, aggrieved that we're supporting Israel and we're not doing enough for the Palestinian people. We're doing a lot for the Palestinian people. We're helping Israel exterminate Hamas. Hamas that keeps these people as human shields. Hamas that deprives these people of water. Hamas that deprives these people of fuel. Hamas that deprives these people of food. Hamas that deprives these people of peace. Wipe out Hamas, you bring peace, water, food, and fuel to the people of the Palestinian territory of Gaza. But these people don't really care about all of that. They care about hating Jews. And those of you who are Jewish and you tend to vote Democrat, you should be aware and have your eyes open about the struggle sessions inside the Secretary of State's office and at the White House of pro-Hamas supporters. This administration is filled with people who want the Jewish people dead. This administration has blood on its hands. This administration funded Iran, and Iran used that money knowingly by the White House to fund Hamas. And here we are. Here we are at the end of this month of nightmares, not just for Israel, but for the Jewish people around the world. In Indianapolis, a person ran her car into a home that she believed were Jews. It actually turned out to be an anti-Semitic organization that uses Israel in its name. But this woman, who the police are labeling a terrorist, drove her car into the home of a group she believed were sympathetic to Israel or Jewish. In New York, pro-Hamas supporters have marched in the streets and at the White House. They've defaced the statue of the Marquis of Lafayette. And they put up Palestinian flags. In London, they beat up people who were carrying British flags and wearing poppies for war remembrance and tore down the flowers at the war monument there and put up the Palestinian flag. The people who waved the Palestinian flag say they care about the Palestinian people, and yet they do not call for Hamas to lay down their arms. They do not call for Hamas to release the hostages. They do not call for Hamas to surrender. They call for Israel to stop what they call Israel's genocide, because they don't believe Israel or Jews have a right to self-defense, because they support the extermination of the Jewish people. And they're being more and more brazen and open about it 1 month into this nightmare. I want my Jewish friends to know I'm on your side, not for some kooky misinterpretation of the Bible, but because I can see good and evil, and I want the evil exterminated, and that evil goes by the name Hamas.
Want to be on